Gentlemen, welcome to the Derry grand opening celebration of our new expanded library. My name is Commissioner Adamovich, Mayor Dowd, trustees, friends, and fellow library patrons. Welcome. My name is Fred Kinsella, and I'm with the Friends of the Support Group, Friends of the Derry Public Library. I'm a friend and a citizen who has worked as a trustee, site committee member, and advocate for several years for this expansion of our library. It therefore gives me great personal pleasure to welcome all of you to this magnificent new community cultural center, our public library. Joining us today is New Hampshire's Commissioner of Cultural Affairs, Shirley Adamovich. Shirley is a cum laude graduate of the University of New Hampshire and received her master's degree from Simmons College. Her career includes consulting in Vermont and New Hampshire. Having worked at Bentley, Hawthorne, and Merrimack colleges, Mrs. Adamovich rose from the Assistant New Hampshire State Librarian to New Hampshire's State Librarian. She was named the first Commissioner of Library Arts and Historical Resources in New Hampshire. Mrs. Adamovich's accomplishments include the formation of a regional cooperative in New Hampshire, in Manchester, and New Hampshire's automated information system. This innovative system linking libraries across the state through communication centers at major libraries throughout the state. Please join me in welcoming Commissioner Adamovich.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here this afternoon. I think that these days of dedication are among the most wonderful things that can happen for us in the library world when we see our libraries expand and so many people come to see them. I like very much to go back through the history of a town when something like this happens to see what led us to arrive at this particular point, if I can. What kind of people founded Derry or Londonderry? How did their early attitudes towards education and libraries develop? So with your permission, and because it might be easier for me to try to remember all this, I'm going to read a little bit to you about the history of Derry, and in particular its involvement with education and libraries. I'll say, today in this historic town of Derry, we dedicate a fine new addition to the public library, another jewel in the crown for this lovely town, for the statewide library community, and for our great state of New Hampshire. To start from the general purview of New Hampshire libraries and to move to the particulars of this new library, one must mention the long and very distinguished library history in our state, a history second to none, and of which we can be justly proud. The first free public library in the modern world was established in Peterborough, New Hampshire in 1834, a tribute to those citizens who saw the need of a more general institution dedicated to broadening people's minds beyond the regular public school experience. There had been many other types of libraries up and down the east coast of our land, but we in New Hampshire can boast the first to be supported by tax dollars on an ongoing basis for all the people, free and unrestricted. New Hampshire passed the first in the Union legislation in 1849 to enable all towns to do the same thing, to use tax dollars for library services. We had one of the first state libraries with provincial and state collections dating back to the 1690s, almost 300 years ago. New Hampshire was one of the first states to award direct state aid to its public libraries. This in 1895, when also the first state library building was erected. The New Hampshire Library Association, established by legislation in 1889, is the oldest in the country and celebrated its 100th birthday last year. We in New Hampshire, recognizing the need of all people for intellectual and recreational resources, put one of the first bookmobile systems in the country in place in 1938. We were among the first to put library visitors or consultants into the field to aid small libraries. This happened in 1918. We can claim the first statewide intertype library automation system that serves our people through all types of libraries, public, school, academic, and special. These are only some of the highlights, the first that distinguish our libraries our states, and the sturdy independence and love of learning and original thinking that distinguish our New Hampshire men and women. To review the development of free public library service in Derry, we should go back a little to the founding fathers and mothers of this town, men and women who, under the leadership of the Reverend James McGregor in 1718, set forth from Londonderry and Ireland for the New World. And in his last sermon preached in Ireland, Reverend McGregor set forth some reasons for coming to America. Among them were to escape from civil bondage and oppression, and to attain the liberty to live as free men according to the dictates of conscience and with freedom of thought. And you can see how those thoughts developed to our own Bill of Rights and Constitution. Out of ideas such as these came the fundamental American rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and those others that established freedom of religion, of the press, and of free speech. From these basic truths, prized by the hardy settlers of the 17th and 18th centuries, grew the grand concepts of free public schools and free public libraries. As you all probably know, after a terrible winter in Maine, Mr. McGregor and his little band sailed back down the coast and up the Merrimack River to Haverhill. They scouted the land, settled on an area known as Nutfield for its abundance of butternut, chestnut, and walnut trees. They created home sites along West Running Brook, and 2 centuries later, your famous townsman Robert Frost commented in a poem called West Running Brook, on returning to the beginnings. He said, "It is the backward motion towards the source against the stream that most we see ourselves in, the tribute of the current to the source." The source for the freedoms of the American settlers can be traced to England and the Magna Carta, giving every man the right to maintain his home as his castle against unwarranted intrusion, and to John Milton, who in his Areopagitica set forth the principles of freedom of the press. America's settlers took these great concepts and from them developed one of the finest societies the world has ever seen. And central to these societies is our great system of public library service, the university of the people, the source of all knowledge, free and unrestricted. And so these early settlers of Nutfield, later Londonderry, and later still part of that became Derry, built their farms, workplaces, schools, and libraries, first in East Derry and then in Derry Village. History notes that the townspeople established an early proprietary library before 1800. Such libraries were common in the 18th and early 19th centuries and preceded the development of the tax-supported public libraries. Proprietary libraries were based on the concept of ownership through shares of stock sold to interested buyers. The sale of such shares maintained the library, paid the librarian, and purchased books. These libraries were small and generally housed in someone's home. The collections were mostly of a historical or religious character, and here in Derry, when the division of the town came about in 1827, the books were divided among the stockholders. The method of division was to pile the books into 2 equal piles, one for Derry and one for Londonderry. The first public library was established with requests from the Taylor sisters and was opened to the public in 1889. The Derry Public Library, the addition to which we dedicate today, began in 1905 with $1,000 worth of books given by Rosencrantz W. Pillsbury, and they were housed in a room in the then new Adams Memorial Hall on West Broadway. At the same time, the town voted $500 to furnish the library and the reading rooms. The early town records were to be published and preserved, and the town raised $300 for that purpose. These were substantial sums of money back at the turn of the century and testified to the concern townspeople had for books and reading and for their historical heritage. As has been mentioned, one of the original settlers of Derry was the Reverend James McGregor, who led his people to the settlement on West Running Brook. He and they cherished the rights of freedom of worship and thought, and it is fitting that a descendant, one Henry F. McGregor of Houston, Texas, Laurie Mahaffrey's hometown, should leave a bequest to Derry in 1926 to build McGregor Park and to erect a library building there called the McGregor Library. The years since 1927 have seen a tremendous growth in the size of the state, the town, population, business, development, and highways. All over New Hampshire, library services have expanded to meet the demand, and public libraries no longer stand alone. They share their resources statewide and can take advantage of both state and federal funding. Your public library is a proud participant in statewide library development. I would like to list some of your achievements. Your librarian, Laurie Mahaffey, is Vice President, President-elect of the New Hampshire Library Association. the oldest statewide library association in the country, and one that educates for library service with many scholarships. The association promotes library development in New Hampshire through forums, conferences, workshops, and advocacy. You can be proud of your fine librarian who has won the respect and trust of her peers. Your library takes part in the New Hampshire Automated Information System, a statewide telecommunications network that accesses library holdings, including those of 175 public libraries, the University System of New Hampshire Libraries, several other academic libraries, the holdings of the Franklin Pierce Law Center, and the State Law Library at the Supreme Court, and collections in many high school libraries. In addition, the Derry Library is a member of the Mary Hill Rock, a cooperative of several local libraries formed to share experience and promote good library service. Your library takes full advantage of state library programs such as talking books for the blind, interlibrary loan, van delivery of materials, and video and film borrowing. And so today, we and our fine libraries stand poised on the threshold of a new century. Technology will bring to us unheard-of opportunities. The public library will continue to serve the recreational and informational needs of an ever-increasingly literate population. And the library will link a totally new business and social structure. Forecasts of a stay-at-home population that conducts most of its work electronically have flowed liberally from the eminence of telecommuting, electronic funds transfer, and shopping via interactive video text. The state of major traffic arteries at rush hour, and I've been through Derry many a time at rush hour, and increasingly at practically any time of the day, the lines at the drive-up windows of banks and the parking lots in shopping malls and downtown areas bespeak the rate of progress towards such a society. The environmental hazards of automobiles alone will begin to change our dependence on driving everywhere. And so electronic publishing and dialing up bibliographic data and full-text databases are but the first building blocks towards national and international global libraries at the other end of our telephones. We are witnessing the great handshake between libraries and technology. But in our recognition of the need for the implementation of technology to serve the informational needs of an informed citizenry, we must not forget our need for and dedication to the book, the fundamental basic element of libraries. In my lifetime alone, we have moved from the age of publishing launched by Gutenberg that created printed materials bearing the community's memory, wisdom, literary imagination, and knowledge. The great medium is the book. New books did not replace all of the old because knowledge was thought to be evolutionary and cumulative. The passing years gave new vitality to the classics of past centuries. In its time, the printed book, too, we must remember, was also a triumph of technology. It became the record and the catalyst, also the incentive for most of the knowledge of the human race. Books conquered time. There is a difference between such knowledge and information per se. Knowledge is cumulative and orderly. Information is random and miscellaneous. Therefore, it should be plainer than ever that libraries and books are needed to keep civilization in perspective. True, we need ready information, but we also need to acquire knowledge for ourselves so that we can be wise and productive citizens. Books are still the vehicle for this knowledge, and to quote John Milton, "As good almost kill a man as kill a good book. Who kills a man kills a reasonable creature, God's image. But he who destroys a good book kills reason itself. A good book is the precious lifeblood of a master spirit, embalmed and treasured up on purpose to a life beyond life." And a former Librarian of Congress, Daniel Borstein, has said, "Knowledge comes from the free mind foraging in the rich pastures of the whole, everywhere past." As we move into the 21st century, it is readily apparent that the wise citizens of Derry have prepared themselves to provide their future citizens with books, knowledge, and information. You have created your own future, and I congratulate you on this fine new addition to your library and extend my best wishes for your continued success. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Joan Patachowski is the chairman of the McGregor Library Trustees, has worked industriously from the very beginning in planning and designing this impressive addition to McGregor Library. Please welcome Trustee Chairman Joan Patachowski.
Commissioner Adamovich, Mayor Dowd, State Library officials, state representatives, town councilors, trustees, librarians, staff, friends, and patrons. The day we have long awaited has finally arrived, and we are proud to welcome all of you to this, our grand opening, not only of the new addition, but also the renovation of the McGregor building. There were times over these last 18 months when we wondered if and when this day would arrive. Even though it is not completely finished, we can certainly present to you today a magnificent structure. The townspeople of Derry can be assured that they have spent their money very well, and that they have a building that will enhance the community and continue to serve the needs of their children well into the 21st century. I would like to thank all of you for your patience during the construction period, when it seemed that we threw every roadblock possible in your paths. I would be remiss if I did not thank all those who played such a vital part in this building project. I want to thank the Commissioner and the other state staff persons for their guidance and support. I would like to thank all the trustees and the staff from other libraries for putting up with us when we went traveling, snooping, and questioning. You will never know how important you all were to us for the invaluable information you gave us, which we were able to take back to our board, our architect, and our contractor. I would especially like to thank Diane Gavrish, a former director, for planting the seed for this building project, and Ellen Hartzog, our previous director, for her tireless efforts in keeping the project alive. Without her, this project might still be on the drawing boards. And finally, our present director, Laurie Mahaffey, and her staff. A pat on the back and a job well done. Through welding fumes, jackhammering, and more dust than I care to think about, they have all worked above and beyond the call of duty. To Cheryl Lynch, our assistant director in charge of reference, who probably did more research than she ever thought she could planning and orchestrating today's affair, and to Joanne Allard, whose artistic touches can be seen in many of the magnificent floral arrangements and the signs that you will see, a huge thank you. To the Friends of the Library and Fred Kinsella, our Master of Ceremonies, we could not have done this today without all your time and efforts. To the Masons for allowing us the use of their building for programs and storage. To Danny Henderson for safeguarding our stained glass window. And to Ralph Bonner and the Historical Society, you will never know how much we appreciate your time and efforts. And to my fellow trustees, especially Carolyn Johnson and Larry Eckhouse, we have literally lived this project over the last 2 years. Thank you. To our architects, Ingram Wallace from Manchester, whose superb sense of design and color have made this building look as aesthetically pleasing as it does, we commend you. Everyone loves the building. To our contractor, DCM, our job super, Mr. St. Pierre, and all our subcontractors, we owe you a debt of gratitude. As you look around at our furniture, please remember our vendors with whom it has been a pleasure to work. Our magnificent mahogany circulation desks up here and downstairs are the creation of the Galuzzo Corporation, housed right here in Derry. To the town council who voted for this addition, and to Mayor Dowd and the present administration for its support, and all other town employees who helped further this project, we say thank you. And to all those others out there whom I have missed, and I know there are a lot of you, all the volunteers and groups who had any part in this project at all, I thank you. Finally, to one last person, to a man who was a tireless and dedicated public servant, a man whom I knew for many years, who was dedicated to furthering literacy in this community, and without whose efforts and the efforts of his administration, we would not have had this addition. My deepest disappointment is that he did not live long enough to see this building completed, but it stands as a tribute to his memory. To that effect, we are pleased to proclaim that henceforth our meeting room downstairs shall officially be called the Paul P. Collette Senior Conference Room in memory of Derry's first mayor. And now, if I could get Janet Conroy and the other members of the Collette family. Unfortunately, Mrs. Collette is not available to be here today. She is ill. But if I could have the other sisters, Paul's mother, Valerie and the baby, come over here. Paul's son. We would like to unveil a portrait of the mayor that will be hung in the conference room downstairs.
The youngest member of the family is James Michael. He'll be a month old tomorrow. chairman just informed me I'm to say something. Well, this is portrait at the present time is on loan from the town hall. The portrait that is being presented to the library by two of the trustees isn't quite ready yet. So we borrowed this from the wall of the town hall. And I want to express my deep appreciation to the Collette family for producing Paul. He was a fine man. I worked with him on the Board of Selectmen and had a lot of fun with him. I'm just sorry he's not here. But his grandson and his family will be remembered for a long, long time. And I thank you all.
Our thanks to Janet Conroy and Joan Patichowski. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Charlie Torrey, who is the past commander of the Lester W. Chase Post No. 9 of the American Legion. Charlie Torrey.
Honorable Mayor Dowd, trustees, friends, if I could have Mrs. Mahaffey up there. Okay. On behalf of the Lester W. Chase, Post No. 9, the American Legion, Department of New Hampshire, I'd like to present you with our nation's colors, to be proudly flown, and a new beautiful addition to the Gregor Library.
It's now our pleasure to hear from the second mayor of Derry, New Hampshire, the Honorable Jack Dowd.
Thank you. Thank you. I was instructed to say a few words, and I was coached on those few words, but I think it's also appropriate that that I say that this building is a very beautiful building, and it's a building that came about from a lot of hard work from a lot of people, a lot of volunteers, and I think it's a tribute to the town, and it'll be here not only for the residents of the town, but for many residents in the future. And it's a beautiful building, and I wish the library trustees and the libraries a lot of luck. And now, I believe, is this right, Joan? The time we've all been waiting for, the ribbon cutting.
We proudly welcome you to the new addition and to the renovation of the Derry Public Library.
I believe standing right here, I have my foot in the old and the new. We would like to thank you all for coming, and there will be tours given by various members of the staff, beginning in the McGregor section of the library. Thank you for coming to our celebration. Please join us in some refreshments served by the Friends of the Library in the Paul Collette Conference Room. Thank you again.